Good evening, everybody. This is the Aligning with Success call. We are Monday, August the 21st. My goodness, already the third week of the month. Where does time go? Tonight, actually, what I would like to do, I think in the last 2-3 weeks, there's been quite a bit of information that has been shared. And it's really, always interesting to see, recap a little bit of what we've learned. But more important is how are we using the information? How is that learning changing our habits and our results? Because it's great to be a student, but if we don't apply and improve our behavior and our results, then we need to go back to basic. And that also is what these calls are important for. What is it that we're really just embracing and changing? So I'd like to actually for now open up to the group and see, in the last 2-3 weeks of the course, what are the 1 or 2 things that maybe really grab your attention and that you said, this is what I need to change? And then what did you do following that? And what kind of change in results, in behavior have you notice in how you build unique and business? Who would like to get started? Quiet group. So are we saying that there was no learning in the last 3 weeks, guys? I'm going to challenge the group here tonight. Are we saying that there was no learning and no things that we wanted to improve and that we improved? Is that why the group is so silent?
I'll speak up, Bernadette.
Go ahead, Bob.
I've been staying connected with a gal that has a business that has mobility items for the elderly, like walkers and step-in tubs and wraps and diapers and all kinds of things. And we connected almost 2 years ago. Our initial conversation was regarding the water, and she was very much interested in it. But then in the interim, she joined Jade Greens or Juice Plus, and she joined doTERRA. And then the other day, she had become a customer of mine because of the shampoo and conditioner testimonial. And the other day she called me. She's been thinking about becoming a consultant. And she had an elderly gentleman come into her store looking for a knee wrap. And when she looked at it, it was a Niken knee wrap and he needed another one. So she decided then and there, well, it's obvious these products are accepted, and the man didn't want any other kind. He only wanted what he had. So she upgraded to a consultant. She now has a water system in her store. She has a water bottle for her own personal use. And I had the size of knee wrap that the gentleman wanted, so I took it into her, and I said, you can give him immediate delivery and then just reorder a replacement. And she's now quite excited about moving forward more with Niken because she can see how it can be an enhancement to what she's already doing. And she's already experienced a couple of the products. So
that's great, Bob. So from what you've heard,
staying in touch.
Getting to, and so what are the 1 or 2 things that you've learned in the last couple of weeks that you believe is going to allow you to maybe launch this person or work with this person in a more effective way?
Well, I think the main thing, Bernadette, and I mean, it's drilled into us all the time, follow up, follow up, follow up. And sometimes we hold back because we don't want them to think that we're pushy. Or that we're trying to twist their arm to become involved. But, you can follow up in a general way and see where they're at, give them an opportunity to ask any questions pertaining to what it is that we're doing and the technologies that we're promoting. And as time goes on, I've noticed not just with this gal, but with several others, the interest grows. and their questions become more directed. Even though you've asked them what is it that they're looking for, try and get them to define what it is that their solution that they need, they're not always forward about that. But by staying in touch and having general conversations, sometimes more is revealed during a general conversation than a product or business related conversation. And so you're building up sort of a file of content on that specific individual that sort of guides you as to how to go back to them the next time.
So really what you're talking about here, Bar, is not only about doing the follow-up, but it's really about establishing and developing relationship. Right? Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else?
I'll kind of segue on to what Barb was just saying. I like the terms that you...
Madeleine, you muted now?
Oops, sorry, thought I unmuted it. Just adding on to what Barb just said. I've been changing my terminology, being more succinct, and I have an accountability partner on a 31-day plan for that. And then also mentoring someone else, which is helping me to be more focused and succinct. So both directions, engaged both. But using solution, and I just did it with some new neighbors, and another income source with 2 business people, rather than, because Gary Bolton's coming into town, so as I'm doing follow-up phone calls for the reminders for people to come to the in-home, it's in calling to remind business people that I've had in the process for 18 months and 12 months, I understand that you're busy, and you know how passionate I am for contacting you as many times as I have. What I really would like you to look at or to consider is just an extra income source, or not just an extra, but just using the words differently. And I got a different response from the spouse of one, and the other gentleman that put the sunroom on, is calling back to see what he can do. And then today, another thing that I did was Sherry Danzig shared an article in the Atlanta Journal about a project that she did. And I just forwarded that little article to a few other, a realtor and a builder that builds energy efficient homes, and said it. We spoke several years ago. Here's an example of what we spoke about. Would you be interested in having coffee again? So just a very different, tweaking my approach with people that have been in the pipeline. And then in having conversations and calling people to come to the events that we have scheduled, I have some people interested in reinstating that they're needing extra income. I've been hearing about what's going on, and those that I've kept in touch with, just as Barb has mentioned. So really practicing brevity and using some of the terms that you have suggested, which feels better.
Okay,
so
excellent.
The proof will be in the pudding over the next couple of weeks here to see what happens with those outcomes.
Very good. So another thing that you addressed, Madeleine, which is in addition of follow-up, but it's also using tools or using the ABC, and you use, the article as an ABC and so on. ABC, as we know, is one of the best and the most powerful tool that we have. And as I am just, talking here, I'd like to ask each and every one of you is, how soon do you bring the A in the picture? Because that is something that we notice very often is where the challenge, happens for a lot of the consultant, is the A is not getting involved because the B is not asking for an A. Or it takes way too long before an A gets in the picture. And that is something that actually I'm very curious to hear, and I would like to hear some of you, is how soon do you bring the A? Do you always bring an A with your prospect, whether that prospect has a product interest, whether your prospect has a general interest or business interest? You always bring the A. And if you don't, let's ask ourselves, why is it that I don't? Because that is very important, because that is where a lot of the results slow down dramatically. So who would like to respond to what I just said here?
This is Yoko. I'm going to be candid. I've only had one ABC, and I've only asked twice, and I don't know who to ask. And I've asked my upline, but I don't have an upline. I haven't had really an upline in my business since I've been around for 12 years. So that's why I think maybe I've always been a retail reliant person, because that's something that I could do, and it seems to produce income. So, and unfortunately for me, I'm meeting all of you. Madeline has offered to do some ABCs for me now. So I really don't know when to do it, honestly, Matt, Bernadette, and it'd be great if you can do a little 2-minute or whatever, whenever you have time.
All right. Well, I'm good. That's, first of all, thank you for being very candid and honest, Yoko. I think this is just phenomenal, because frankly, I do believe that you're not the only one. But the fact that you're voicing it is great. Well, when do you introduce the A? ASAP. It's really interesting. I'm going to give you some example. I had a consultant one time who called me and said to me, Bernadette, and I'll give you she said, I have somebody who's actually interested in the socks. And I said, okay. I say, and why is that person interested in the socks? Because the reality is you have to know what knick and socks are to buy the knick and socks. Otherwise, you're not going to look for the knick and socks. Right, guys? I'm sure we all agree about that. And she said, I don't know. I said, well, I'm curious. I'd like to talk to this person. I say, yeah, just let her know that your friend actually is definitely wanting to help and like to see, to make sure that the socks aren't the best, the best avenue for you to go. So fortunately, the consultant, really just very candid, say, hey, my friend actually love to speak with you and is curious to see why you like the socks. And fortunately, the person said, yes. Turns out that this person had been using the socks years before, had great result with them. And as I was speaking with that person, turned out that actually what she was looking for, she needed a lot more than the socks. But through my recommendation and so on, what looked like purchasing a pair of socks turned out by a few $100s of product, because what she wanted to get needed a lot more than that. So, it's very often we think first of all, when do we introduce an ABC it's any time that we want to provide a better and a broader information to our guests. But how do we do that? Very often I found that people are not necessarily doing it for a few reasons. One is it's a lack of self-confidence. Let's be clear. It's a lack of self-confidence because we think that I had someone sometimes who said, Bernadette, but I have the answer to the question. I said, that's not the issue. It's not about you. It's about your prospect. I have the answer to the question. I do ABC all the time, and very quickly. But to me, it's about really providing the best information to the person who is asking the question. So, for example, if I make contact with a new person, and that person is interested in looking at Nikken as a whole, I would say, it's great. So first of all, for you just to learn about it, I'll give you quick videos. That's 1A, right? So it's not about me explaining everything. Let me share with you those short videos. And after that, just to make sure that you get the best, answers to all the questions that you may have, or the best information is, I'd like actually to ask a friend of mine to connect with us on the phone, because 3 brain is always better than 2. I have no problem saying that, right? Secondly is I really also want to make sure that you get a different perspective of what this could do for you instead from someone else. That's one way that I said, if it's somebody who is interested in product, for example, I say, this is a great question. What I really believe you do is you would want to talk to this person who had actually similar concern than you and had great results. That's how I introduce an A when it's product related. If it's somebody who is interested in looking into Nikan and whether it's the product or the possibility of maybe coming on board, I would say, this is great. After you watch those short videos that I'm sending you, let's set up a time right now when we're going to talk again, because I know we'll have a lot more to talk about. The best, is that let's set up a time now. So I never leave a person without having set up the next step anyway. And then, and when we meet next, I'll make sure that I will have a colleague of mine on the line, because I want to show you right away how we make this work. Because not only will you be working with me if you do decide this is a fit for you, but I want to show you right away how we work as a team. And that's really what it is, because then, you would want to know who will be there to help and support you anyway. So that's how one way that I also introduce the ABC and introducing the team concept instead of them depending on me all the time. It's, Yoko, if you're saying that you don't have an upline, whether it's local or maybe an active upline, say that's never an issue. That actually is, if we feel, and I know that sometimes we feel, well, I don't have somebody in my upline who's active and so on, say, that is not a reason why we don't do ABC, why not doing ABC. There's especially now with the technology, with the Zoom and the Skype and the FaceTime and everything else that we have available, there is absolutely no reason why we could not do an ABC with someone else.
Bernadette, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you know which leaders or which people avail themselves or make themselves available to do ABCs?
Do I have an extensive list? No. Guys, there's only one way to know. You just ask. So many times we say on stage when we're in training and so on, call us, email us. Do you know how many people call us, email us?
Yeah, but when I've asked for several or tried to contact a person for an ABC, I always get the voicemail, or if I do reach them, they're not available, and then I don't know who to turn to.
Barbara, you are really well connected. I know you. You're very well connected to a lot of people in Nikan. There is no reason why you could not find an A. Plenty of A's. And what I'm saying to Barb is valid for anybody who's on this call.
No, Bernadette, I agree. Now, this is the first time I'd have to say the last 4 to 6 months. I feel like I have many people that I can ask, and whoever's available will respond. But this is prior to this, because I've been here for 12 years. So it's wonderful. And that's why I'm open and candid and feel wonderful at these Zooms. Thank you.
And this is great. And guys, today is a brand new day. So even if before you didn't have the support or whatever happened before is before.
Yes.
Today is today. Yes. Right? Yeah. I remember, guys, let me tell you something is, my gosh, 17 years ago, I moved to San Francisco. That was before we had FaceTime and Skype. We barely used it at that time. Sounds bizarre when I say that. We didn't have any Zoom and all that. And conference call, we had to pay them. The phone were outrageously expensive. My whole upline were on the East Coast in Canada. I moved away from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I remember at that time, a number of my uplines said, we don't know what's going to happen to Bernadette because she's going to be on her own. Guys, as much as our upline is fantastic, and yes, they can help us accelerate, if we feel we're dependent on them, we have not yet taken ownership of our business.
I had a great ABC tonight.
Right, and I'm sorry if I'm a bit blunt. For some of you, it may be a bit blunt, but that is the truth and the reality.
Well, I find that 3-ways cross-line are more effective. People are blown away that somebody who doesn't make money on you is willing to spend time with you. And that I always point that out in the discussion.
That's a good point. A really good point.
Cross-line, there's downline. I cannot tell you how many 3-ways I do with my own downline. And they're on the A. This is very powerful at that. I do it with people who are brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's not about doing it with people who've been around for a long time and who know a lot. It's all about leveraging someone else's point of view, someone else's positive experience. That's really what it is. It's all about validating what we're saying through a third party.
Well, Dave was my A tonight because I had an online event and I had a number of new people on the that participated.
Excellent.
So,
excellent. That's great. Suzanne, I know you wanted to say, you raised your hand.
In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I did do that with my sister who's fairly new, and I had a friend, and the experience that my sister's gone through was a perfect pairing for my friend. So my sister became my A, and it was wonderful, and we did it on Zoom. But it's, for me, the ABCs are key. When you're not doing them, the business is not growing. When you are doing them, that's when it really, magic happens. It's an integral part. And I think it shows new people that they don't need to know everything in order to get started, because they have a team in place. As long as you have a phone or a computer, or, that's your connection. And with the expo that happened over the weekend, the East Coast Expo, I was able to plug in 2 different people into 2 different segments. And it was wonderful to just be able to plug those people into that expert crew that was presenting at the time. And it's great. And it's frustrating sometimes to be able to line people up, but there are WhatsApp chats that you can just send I need a 3-way, who can jump on, and we do that a lot of the times in the Platinum Alliance, and it works great. And by the way, Bernadette, what's your schedule for this week? Because I'd love to do it.
I responded to you, Suzanne.
Yay! Thank you.
Don't ask me now. I responded to you. So the key thing, guys, is use your A's, use the network, which is the reason why coming to those calls is important. So then you can private message each other and say, hey, would you be my A? What's your email? What's your phone number? This is the reason why we go to the live events or the big conferences, all of it. It's all about that, and leveraging, absolutely, leveraging all the tools that are available to us. This is one. Truly, I know we've heard that hundreds of times, and we're going to keep hearing it time and time over, because it is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And unfortunately, that is not used enough by the field. And the more, and it's all about understanding we're not doing something to the prospect, because sometimes I'm doing something to them. No. We're doing something for them, not to them. It's all about where do we come from? It always goes back is, do we have the best interest at heart or not? And that, to me, that's what it is, right? So it's all about that. The other thing, sometimes it's our ego also that gets in the way. Because sometimes I've heard some consultants who say, well, I have the answer to this. I don't need an A. Or someone else, I had another consultant one time who said, well, if I have an A, what do I look like? I say, oh, so it's your ego who gets in the way, right? You're afraid of saying that we work as a team versus you being the expert. You're afraid of saying that you don't know it all, which means we're human, right? So it's all about that, guys. I think a lot of time, unconsciously, it's our ego that gets in the way. and that made us not communicate properly, right? And as we've heard by some of you, Madeline and Suzanne, and so on, is the more we show people that they can do it with or without us, and they don't need to be superwoman or superman and to know it all, the better we'll engage them into the process and into the opportunity. All right? Anyone else?
Bernadette, can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is Mrs. Kramer in Jerusalem. Some time back on the WhatsApp group, I sent a message with the idea to make a database in a spreadsheet to put all of our information in it so that we could just take a look at it and choose someone who would be appropriate for our seed. And I'm not sure why I didn't. I got a lot of response in terms of people giving their email addresses, but it occurred to me later that perhaps not everyone knows how to use a spreadsheet. And so it occurred to me that if people will send me, who want to be a part of this, would send me their story, the relevant parts of their story that they think would be useful in such an endeavor, I will put the information into the spreadsheet.
Great comment. Excellent. Anyone else?
I'll renew that offer on the WhatsApp thing.
Absolutely. I think, guys, it is just build your support, take initiative. That's really what it is. The more we do that, the more, it's not about being independent, it's about really creating interdependence. So we want to be independent enough that we don't need somebody to tell us what to do, right? But we don't want to be so independent that we become a lone ranger. So it's really about collaboration. It's really about collaboration and working with each other. But not, again, not being dependent on others. By the way, before I mention is tonight the call will end at 6:45 because I had to move a meeting. I had another meeting planned. So I am hosting the call, but I have to end this call in 15 minutes, just so you know, guys. Okay? All right. So.
Bernadette?
Yes?
This is Carol.
Who is this?
I've had this is Carol in
Okay.
Wisconsin.
Yes, Carol.
Carol. And the BBCs pretty regularly lately, and they're wonderful. However, I have some people who are really adverse. Like they'll just say, well, I don't want to talk to anybody. They're taking it as, well, I'm dealing with people that really are adverse to MLA. And I'm wondering if you have any, basically then just let it be and let them be. But I'm just wondering if there's some way of approach that might be helpful with people like that. Just let them go if they're so negative on MLM, I guess.
I'm going to say this with a smile and without this. Why do you want to deal with negative people?
Right. Well,
right?
They're good friends, and that's the problem.
Listen, there's lots and lots of people out there who are waiting for us to talk to them. And I mean it, guys, who are waiting for us to really approach that. There's no reason to linger on the people who want to be convinced or want to be right or want to get. There's no reason for that. Absolutely no reason. Sometimes one of the misconceptions that we have is we feel, Nikken is so wonderful that yes, everybody can use our products. Yes, everybody could use extra income with our business. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that everybody will.
Right.
And once we understand that, then it's okay. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like one thing that I said to people, imagine, guys, it's like how many people go to the department stores? Lots of people in a day. Now, how many of them go out just because they want go in the store, but they're really not interested in buying anything? They just go there because maybe they have nothing else to do. Maybe they're just browsing, but they're not really. And they just look, but they will always find maybe something that doesn't. They just go in, go out. Then there's other people who will go there looking for something very specific. And if you try to show them something that it doesn't fit with what they want, they're just going to be very negative about it. Right? And there's other people that get in the store, right, and they never come out because they go everywhere and they buy shopping bags. Right? So what am I saying is there's a place for everybody. And it's okay not to try to sell everybody. Our opportunity is good for everyone, but it doesn't mean everybody will. And when we linger on those who are not interested, we are actually not paying attention to those who are looking for us. And that's a big mistake that we're making, right? So also the other thing is I'm sure that happens to all of us. We all go to the restaurant from time to time. And I'm sure that we've all seen a sign in the restaurant also that says, the restaurant says, we reserve the right of not serving customers. Do we say anything about that? No. And they have the right, because if you have some customers who are really obnoxious and negative and so on, why would you want to deal with them? Well, we have the same right, guys. The only difference is our store is a virtual store. But we have exactly the same right. We don't have to deal with everybody. We choose the people who you want to work with, and I guarantee you it will be a lot more fun. It will be a lot faster. I mean, everything will be better, right? So let's create an environment that creates our own success versus taking us away from it. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
Good.
It does.
Okay. Suzanne, go ahead.
Another quick thing you asked at the top of this call is some changes that we've experienced. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things, other than what Madeline said, is changing the terminology. I've had a couple of experiences this last week of not feeling uncomfortable with the idea of the key components for someone to start a business. Not with a pair of insoles. It would be our core products, and using core solutions. Using your thoughts on last week's call or the week before, the sleep system, the water, and accessories. And that just kind of starts flowing out when you say that a few times. And realizing that that's the way I started. So once that realization happened for me, I said, well, of course, that's the best way to get started to create those experiences and those stories so that the business can grow. So I found it to be very freeing and really listening for other people's needs rather than being concerned about the investment that the people were going to be making, because it's the best investment they can make.
Excellent, excellent. And and to add to what you're saying, Suzanne, what you're doing by interacting that way and communicating that way with your prospect is you're really giving them, which it is theirs anyway, the power of decision. Our job, I really believe that our job is to make the best recommendation. Again, to really show them what is the best for them. And their job is to decide how they're going to get started. But on the other hand, on our side, we've done our job. We've done our job. It's all about always going back to what's best for them. And it's about removing ourselves or our feeling of, being unsure or whatever, or we think about the money that is in their bank account or not in the bank account. And so on. By the way, which is another reason why doing an ABC is critical. Because when you are talking to somebody who you know, whether it's a friend, family, or colleague, but somebody who you know, it's always somehow you know a little bit of their life circumstances. And that also is the reason why very often we're shy of doing the proper recommendation. But a stranger doesn't know. So it's easier for us to make the right recommendation as well. One thing that I want to mention also, as I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but the answer that we get depends on the question we ask. Let me repeat this. The answer we get depends on the question we ask. So